Charles Leclerc finally returns to P1 in an epic race at Silverstone.
Yay!
Race that had just a little bit of everything. And we're here to talk about it on the formation lap after the checkered with Todd and Brad, regular guys talking elite racing. Todd, I'll welcome in here. But before we jump into the race that we saw at Silverstone, just want to get your quick thoughts. Of course, it was a sprint weekend. So, Todd, just a couple of quick thoughts on what we saw in the sprint race at Silverstone on Saturday.
Yeah, hey Brad, it's great to be back, and man, it was exciting. And I had forgot there was a sprint. I know we did our preview talking about the sprint qualifying, and man, let me tell you, it was a fun sprint, and
Mm-hmm.
Lewis just took it and ran with it, and I thought he was really in tune with what was going on, and he was able to just love that course and drive it. I think he had his car just about perfect in that, and it was just surprising for everyone. But I think the other, the back markers there, I think they did well too. It was just a fun, exciting 17 lap, just all out. And I think we saw some of the top runners, but we also verified some of the midterms that were coming in pretty good. Midfield, excuse me, not
Yeah.
midterm, midfield. But yeah, I thought it was great, and it was just excited to see everybody. And I know your team, he did well. Lando came in. He was near his Lando stand,
Yeah.
grandstand and different things. But Brad, what did you think about the sprint?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a good battle between Kimmy and Lewis. Thought Lewis was going to pull it off, and but those two battling, the guy who took his place in Mercedes, that was really epic. You mentioned it. I couldn't be more proud of my guy Lando. It was a tough weekend for us, and we're going to talk about that. But Lando with a fantastic start to get onto the podium, and he didn't give it up. George ended up making it a little hairy for me there at the end. I was kind of sweating it out the last 4 or 5 laps. But yeah,
Yep.
Todd, very, very proud of Lando. Lewis and Kimmy there on the podium with George and Charles to round out the top five. But a great sprint race. Love that Silverstone had a sprint race. I thought that was good. I would like to
Yeah.
see that. I would like to see that permanent. Moving forward. But Todd, I'll turn over to you. We saw an unbelievable race yesterday, and it had a little bit of everything. Luckily, and we talked about this in our preview with England, the weather can change on a dime. We had beautiful weather all weekend. We saw Charles, and I know that's your guy, but we both really like Charles. We saw Charles after a really, really just tough races ever since Monaco when his big
Yeah.
contract extension. Charles has just struggled with his form. We saw him get back in P1. It was a good race from Lewis. But Todd, I think that, kind of the big talking points is, Kimmy was charging after Charles there on fresh tires, and he goes over some cornering, and that piece there on his tire
Yeah.
ends up costing him, and he gets a 5-second penalty. And then Max goes off at lap 47, 48, and the
Oh, yeah.
race finishes over a safety car. So we're going to talk about those storylines here in a bit. But Todd, it was a crazy race. It was an epic race, and man, Ferrari is coming from Mercedes.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, there was some misfortunate things for, McLaren, Oscar, and then the two Mercedes had punctures, in their
Yeah,
tires.
yeah.
And then, as you said, Kimmy had something. So it was like everything was going against Mercedes and trying
Mm-hmm.
to lift Lewis up, but Lewis just didn't have his car totally there. But, I've been saying that Ferrari has needed to prove they can convert into, some qualifying speed, which
Yeah.
they did into race pace. And I think they finally showed it. And I will tell you that Lewis, excuse me, felt that his car was still not quite right, from wherever it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, Charles and Lewis showed that Ferrari is coming. And what's amazing is they didn't think they would be there,
Mm-mm.
yet. They were hoping they'd get to Spa and get some of the engines, going. But yeah, this is the first time that Charles won since 2024.
Yeah. And
Ferrari looked
and
fast
we
all
were
weekend.
and we were at that race for his last win in
Oh, that's
Austin.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. And, Lewis, Hey, he's on the podium again. It'd been great to see
Mm-hmm.
him win 10, right? But the biggest
Mm-hmm.
takeaway is I think Ferrari may finally have a race winning package again. And
Yeah.
like you said, it is. And so, against Mercedes and stuff and the others we'll talk about here in a minute, but I would have loved to seen that last two laps, maybe
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
lap. And here in American NASCAR, if it happens like that, they push it out and give you two
Right.
more laps. Maybe that's something they need to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Brad, did Ferrari simply have a perfect weekend in your opinion, or have they generally closed the gap?
I generally think they closed the gap. I was wondering where they were going to be at, especially. I mean, Timmy Kimmy caught Lewis in the sprint race as we talked about, but man, and I know Kimmy was catching Charles, but Todd Charles just threw. He was just in control of that race, and it was just kind of one of those things that. As we got late there, Kimmy made the decision to put on those fresh tires, and he was catching them at a rapid pace. But Charles just kind of controlled the race, and Lewis and George had some epic battles, and Todd Lewis would have finished in P2 if it wasn't for the decision to that by Mercedes to leave
Yeah.
George out, and Lewis makes the pit. But also, if we would have got one lap of racing, Lewis would have been on amazingly better, just
Yeah.
crazy better tires.
Yeah.
And
George he even said my
oh,
tires are totally cold. I would have
exactly.
been
So,
just
so
gone.
I think that was a tough. That was tough. That unfortunately, and I don't think that was bad strategy by Ferrari by any means. It was. I think honestly, it was a good call by Mercedes. They were just able to get a quote unquote free overtake there on Lewis versus George. But I legitimately think Ferrari has caught up. I don't know that the race pace is still quite there. I think Mercedes has got the advantage,
Yeah.
but everything else, Ferrari has caught it, and this is going to give Charles a huge boost of confidence, and it's now going to be able to push and say, let's go catch Mercedes. It's just not all about Lewis now. Charles and Lewis working together. Let's go catch these guys. And Todd, we may see it's not just Lewis versus George versus Kimmy. Throw Charles into the mix. That we've got a lot more races left in the season. It could be a four driver
Yeah, it could be.
four driver race.
And Brad, I think this is bigger than just winning a race. I think what happened is Charles, somewhere in Friday night or Saturday morning, he looked at a lot of data. He did some
Yeah,
adjustments, and he said, "Okay." And what he did during he built his confidence, but then he
right,
stayed composed. He knew he
right,
didn't have Kimmy on him all the time. He knew Lewis was and I think he did some great race management and took advantage of those things. And then
and yeah, and I
George
read
quietly just hung out.
right,
When
right.
you think about it, as a champion does, he said, "Let me just let everything," and look where he ended up on the podium.
Exactly. And I read, and I don't think this can be undervalued. Charles got about a 40-minute nap before the race, so that
Yeah, he
that
did. Free
obviously
nap.
that obviously, hey, it may have calmed him down or whatever. But it was anyway. Great race, and like I said, I think Ferrari is legitimately they're right there with Mercedes in it.
Yeah, so let's talk about Racing Bulls. I don't think Racing Bulls are a surprise anymore, and we've been
No,
kind of hinting
no,
towards that. And Lawson P6
yep,
and Limblad, the only rookie P7 in his home race, and then he was consistently outperforming expectations. Both of them
mm-hmm.
are, and I think they are not only becoming the strongest midfield team, and you and I hinted towards it in the preview is Red Bull better be watching out because Racing Bull
Absolutely,
is there, and Max, he's not happy at all.
no, no.
Isaac is at least working through it, but I see Racing Bulls really pushing up, and I'd love to hear what you think about that, Brad.
No, you brought up a good point. It's obvious to me, and I'm just looking at the standings here. Todd, uh, Red Bull's still got quite a gap, but Racing Bulls is one point behind Alpine now, and they're gonna catch them before too long. No, Racing Bulls is
Yeah,
legit. They're for real. I mean, and we talk about when one of the big four being Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull, when one of their drivers doesn't score points, it gives those quote unquote midfield teams a chance. And what did we see on Sunday? Kimi didn't score points. Max with the DNF and Oscar didn't score points, so that elevates all those midfield teams with a chance to score
yeah,
points. And you saw, I mean, Racing Bulls is for real. They have got the strategy figured out. I can't talk, man. I'm so impressed. Arvid looks great. Liam Lawson, everyone was down and out on this guy
right.
after last year he I think he had
Three races, I think. Two races.
exactly 2 or 3 races with Red Bull. Everyone's like, we're going to send him back to the junior team, and he's responded just fantastically this year. And
He has.
Todd, we're going to get. I want to. This is one of the talking points I want to talk about later. But look, if I'm the Red Bull principal, Max isn't happy. I'm looking at those two guys in race bulls. I'm saying, okay, that's one of those guys we can promote if something ends up happening with Max. But racing bulls is fun right now. It's a lot of fun, and they are. It's just not that they are just consistently in the top 10. They're pushing everyone. They're pushing McLaren. They're pushing Red Bull right now.
I mean, P6, P7, a couple guys up front go out.
Right. They're
and
right
guess
there.
What? They're right there. And, they're not having car problems like Red Bull. I think the back wing is what's causing, Max to really – and that was a scary little –
Absolutely.
It wasn't a crash, but it could have been a bad crash real quick. And so – yeah, I think that you're exactly right, and it's going to be fun watching them. There's a couple of the people back in the midfield that could, but Racing Bull, I think, is really pushing it. So
yes,
it's going to be fun.
For sure.
Brad, who do you think, as we go to trending down, who's not going? One thing that I looked at was Mercedes reliability.
Absolutely.
I think something's going on because this is, okay, something broke, right?
Right.
Yeah, but should anything break on a car just like that for no reason? Hitting someone, I can see it, right?
Right.
But this isn't about speed. It's about reliability. And I think Wolf talked about it, but, fast cars don't win championships if they don't finish.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing here. So, what do you think about the Mercedes reliability?
It's questioning, Todd. It's just not Mercedes. It's those with a Mercedes power unit, right? McLaren, obviously, I know this firsthand. McLaren's had reliability issues. Williams has. I don't necessarily think. I mean, Alpine has. I don't think it's been as relevant, but everyone with a Mercedes power unit has had issues, and you can't directly say that what happened to Kimi was a quote unquote Mercedes power unit, but the car you mentioned it. There's no Kimi just goes over that little bit of a that rough that rough part of the track, and boom, that wheel
it locked up his steering column
exactly. And I mean, you saw it as soon as he hit that. He was you mentioned the steering column locked up, and he had track limits in about 4 corners, and boom, there's your 5-second penalty, which I feel for him. That's kind of unfortunate. He obviously wasn't doing it on purpose, but I think that's a good point. As good as Mercedes has been, I think they're going to continue to be the team to beat. That's where Ferrari has shown they've got an edge, is the car reliability. And that's where Charles and Lewis, it gives them confidence to say, hey, we can push. Timmy and George in the back of my mind are thinking, is this car going to last us the whole race?
It's going to go through. That's right.
Exactly.
I mean, Charles had a couple of wrecks, but that's because he was pushing a car that he wasn't comfortable with.
Exactly.
The car wasn't bad. It was him. And
right.
So, yeah, I think that one's one. And then, let's talk about Red Bull. Max, we thought he was back in Austria, right? And then Silverstone just proved it again. And he was pushing. He was pushing a car that I don't think was where it should be, in my opinion.
Right.
But because he's Max, he was doing. But there's some mechanical balance issues in this thing.
And Todd, it's interesting to me. Isaac looks really good now. Once again, I'm showing a little partiality here. McLaren, I think, showed, outside of qualifying, McLaren showed that race pace they had the better car, but Red Bull was right there. But, Isaac had an encouraging weekend. But if you're looking at it from Max's perspective, this is Max's 3rd DNF of the season.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, Max has got a clause that if the car is not performing well, he can get out of the contract, which is coming up really, really soon. Basically the summer break. So Todd, if I'm Max here, I'm saying, hey, this car is not giving me any confidence. And it's already been rumored that he's talking to McLaren, he's talking to Mercedes. Red Bull's in a tricky situation. They got some things to get figured out.
Yeah, they are. But here's the other twist of that is all the other teams, they just signed all their players for
that's right.
Contract.
That's
players,
right.
Drivers.
No, drivers, right.
But so really Max has nowhere to go. because right now you would have to then
you'd have to kick someone out.
somebody would have to break a clause in
Right.
that, and right.
Right.
So who knows? Max might go to the endurance racing or something
Right.
for a while. I
It,
don't know, but
it,
what a
it
crazy.
it's going to be interesting. I mean, and Max had some choice words for the Red Bull guys back on the pit wall after the car broke. But you mentioned, I mean, that rear wing it's giving problems. And Todd, it wasn't just the race. Max crashed out in qualifying on.
It,
So there's some big issues at Red Bull. I was surprised. I thought after the Red Bull Ring Austria race. I mean, we both thought we're like, okay, Red Bull's coming, and that was one that shows you it's one race. The upgrades are not quite there yet, so it's
yeah.
interesting for sure.
Yeah, and your guys, McLaren, man, they just cannot put it together, and they're trying, and Oscar,
Yeah,
so
really tough weekend for Oscar. Oscar was in the back on the back foot. I do think if we'd have got one lap of racing, Oscar would have finished in a points position. It is what it is. I will say though, as tough of a weekend as it was, I was really proud of Lando. Lando has done what he's done the past couple races. He's been smart. He's been clean. He's just kind of sat back and let things happen.
yeah.
And he wasn't on the podium, but he was in P4, and I'll take that. And I'm down a little bit, but I'm optimistic. It sounds like we've got some really, really powerful upgrades coming in Hungary in a couple of weeks. And I think, according to Andrea Stella, our team principal, these are upgrades that we're going to push for podiums and wins. So I'm optimistic. I just need Oscar to get back in the points and Lando to just keep doing what he's doing at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, I agree. And I think they both realize that, okay, we're not going to be in the hunt. And so
No.
what can we do just to get through this season
Right.
and look at it, and then we'll see what happens. The other team that I saw, Haas, is they just can't put it together.
Can't put it together. No.
And they keep having some glimpse of, okay, it's going to happen. And we thought they were going to do good, but they're going to lose out in the tight midfield. So I think that was the other team that, has been trending down. But, as we close out, I think Silverstone has changed the conversation, though.
Absolutely.
Because 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how Mercedes was dominating and this, and now Ferrari's won, not only once, but, here they are in the sprint. They won. Lewis has got on the podium now twice, and Red Bull is still searching. Racing Bull is going, because I think suddenly, in my opinion, we have one more race before the break, right? In Spa.
Two more races.
Oh,
Spa and Hungary. Spa and Hungary.
And then after that, there's a break. I think we've got a whole nother a different season that's coming up, Brad. What do you think?
No, and I totally agree. And Todd, we've talked about constructors, but just looking at the driver's teams, Kimi is 25 points ahead of George. So that means a DNF by Kimi and a first place by George, and boom, it's tied. And then Lewis is 32 points behind. So this thing's all Charles is some distance, but this thing's all to play for with those three. And honestly, if Charles keeps doing what he's doing this weekend, this thing's going to get interesting.
I know. If I was Ferrari, I'd be like, okay, we know the power unit's going to go out.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So all I got to do is just be there when that happens.
Just be there. Just be there. I thought you hit the nail on the head. Silverstone changed everything. Silverstone put Mercedes in a position to where they're going to be looking not only at Lewis but Charles too, and saying, "Oh man, we've got a real fight in our hands." Because Todd, Ferrari's, I'm looking, they're 88 points behind Mercedes, and that's not that many. That's really not that many points in the grand scheme. I mean, that's if you outscore them consistently 4 or 5 races, you're going to be neck and neck. So
yeah, we could come to the end of summer break and almost be back to even.
That's exactly right.
U.S. football games, college football, sometimes you fight and it's tied at the halftime, you're
right.
Like, all right, well, we got to go back. So
right.
I think it's going to be great. Spa is going to be a exciting race.
Yes.
I don't have a sprint here, but this one really puts cars to the test because of the speed and the undulations and the curve. I mean, this is leading up to be a great race.
Great race. And, I think we'll see some upgrades, but these guys are going to be pushing because they want to be in a good rhythm, Spa and Hungary before the summer break. So it's going to be critical that everyone, teams and constructors, get off to a good close before the summer break. Well, that is After the Checkered Flag on the Formation Lap with Todd and Brad. Enjoy talking Silverstone with you all. Give this video a like. We appreciate the support. Appreciate just all the support up into this point. We're almost at the summer break here. give this video a comment. What did you think of the sprint race and the race this past weekend in Silverstone? And would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button here on the Formation Lap. We love doing this. We love talking elite racing, and we're going to continue to bring it to you. Stay tuned. Not this week, but next week we will be back with our Spa preview. As Todd said, it's going to be an exciting race. It's a course that is got a lot of speed. It's got a lot of elevation changes. It is one of the drivers' favorite courses. So we will preview that race for you next week here on the Formation Lap, and we will see you next time. This is Todd and Brad signing off.